later on.
Later on, we are informed, Jehovah removed one pole of the creative force from the Adamic race or early humanity, and that there were henceforth two sexes or two genders. The esoteric teaching supplements this information by stating that the purpose of this change, or genetic manipulation, was to use one pole of the creative force for building of a brain and a larynx wherewith mankind might acquire knowledge and express itself in speech, and then I extrapolated on to the further developments. The intimate connection between the organs in the brain and the larynx and the genitals is evident to anyone upon the slightest examination of the facts. Now, then I want to skip down, as Dave would say. According to the Bible, our earliest parents were forbidden to eat of the tree of knowledge, or to go back and make a connection between the previous reference, this what I will describe as a genetic manipulation or alteration of an earlier form of intelligent being amounted to the Great Leap.
Yeah.
Giving humanity the capacity to acquire knowledge, and then the original taboo occurred, where they were actually prevented by whoever I think was responsible for the Great Leap, so that they would not get with the program and understand what was happening to them.
They had to remain unconscious to act out the evolution, the development.
Yes, and it says then Eve, the feminine principle, was seduced by the serpent. And then in the book here, it actually says, who are these serpents? And what was the tree of knowledge? Or where was the information coming from? Now, I will go further on.
Let me just say, add something to this point, because it's very timely you quote that, because the, have you read Rudolf Steiner, Anthroposophist literature?
I haven't read too much of him, but I've heard people give dissertations about what he represents.
Right. Now, he had the same idea. Now, what's interesting is William Irwin Thompson, one of the guys in the chart, his new book takes that chunk there and goes through the theosophical view, which this book is sort of the theosophical view of of evolution.
Right.
And he goes through modern science evolution and then newer science evolution and relates it to McLuhan and Jean Gebser. And what's timely is that the very thing you're wrestling with, I recommend you read his new book, Coming to Being, because he deals with this knowledge and the counter knowledge and new ones that he's come up with very comprehensively and wrestles with this question.
Well, I have seen the book. I've seen the book and I thumbed through it. However, I think in terms of a peer review, Irwin Thompson is, I think, worthy of the same criticism that I made, that I think these other individuals are worthy of, namely Terence McKenna, Gene Houston, Robert Anton Wilson, all these people. They've become overly specialized in a comprehensive fashion that prevents them from becoming boundaryless.
Yeah, it was
boundaryless.
Becoming Bob, because I've been sitting.
Bob.
That book, what'd you say?
Becoming Bob.
Yeah, because that book is based on a series of lectures he's given in New York that Connie and I attended.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and what he said in the original lectures 2 or 3 years ago, the first few were done before I got there, but he rewrote them a year or so ago when he prepared to do the book, and he added the input that I put into the meaning of Finnegans Wake and McLuhan. He didn't have a good knowledge of McLuhan, which is approximate Bob knowledge, and when he got it from me through constant haranguing him in the symposium, like he'd give an hour speech and then we'd take a break and then we'd have a dialogue. So I harangued the hell out of him, and even then you go to a restaurant after and have
Oh, you would?
Yeah, and you have 2 hours more, and so I would be harangued. So you look on page 1, he makes the quote I made earlier, television kills telephone brothers. Well, he got that from me. It's so Bob influenced. But you're right, he's saying everything that someone would say that they'd have to know before they sort of really got into Bob stuff. Or since he's part of the chart, he's a stage before Croker. Croker goes further than him. But you got to know Tom's stuff, and you come to the point that you come, there's something he's not quite getting to. So you'd go to Croker. Then you go to Bob. So you're right, that that book is made a bit better due to my input, And
yeah, every time McLuhan or Finnegan's Wake would come up, Thompson would have to make references, or Bob would force him to acknowledge that his reference was
McLuhan. He
or
wouldn't
Finnegan's
admit it.
Wake, and 50 people in the seminar would swing over and look at Bob and laugh.
Well, no, at first they complained
Oh.
about, listen to this, the first year they complained about who's this idiot who keeps bringing up McLuhan.
Yeah.
And so he told me this privately when we had dinner, and I said, look, Bill, you know you're a fucking McLuhan, and these people don't know it. And he says, yeah, Americans don't know anything about McLuhan. This is before Wired happened. And or started. So he didn't know about Wired. It was actually starting to surface. So I turned him on to Wired. He bashes the Wired also through the book, but he didn't know about Wired until I told him about it. So anyways, after 2 years of lectures, Bill finally was using McLuhan more and more, and these people didn't know why McLuhan was used, didn't know enough to know that it was the ground of his stuff. So what Carolyn's saying is that the last session of lectures, anytime Bill would quote McLuhan, everybody would look at me and nod and say, "Thank you, Bob, for helping us realize it was a ground to Thompson."
It brings to mind that those scenes in those 40s and 50s cartoons when there's a gallery and they're going,
Yeah, right, yeah.
back and forth and back and forth, the pro and the con, back and forth and back and forth.
So I don't know if I finished. So Thompson, what's interesting, you're right, that Thompson still doesn't get it, but he is now waiting impatiently for his next move. He has finished his work with this book, which wraps up all his years of books. And it's a good introduction to Thompson, and he emphasizes McLuhan, which he waffled on for years. So it is a great preparation for what this book gives you on the way to understanding Bob.
Yeah,
that's why I recommend it.
Which predated all his apparently quandary
But it comes out of the same tradition, the occult tradition that thought that he's an expert in is Steiner. This is very close to Steiner, which he according to LaRouche,
I've heard him. He's one of the people that I've heard expound on Steiner.
Yeah,
he does. He's very familiar with that. However, I think the reason why he was trying to switch subjects on you in light of these reference points or footnotes. Well, in my opinion, the responsibility lies on his shoulders. He's the one who teaches at Columbia.
Yeah.
If people aren't familiar with Marshall McLuhan,
in
a small way, it's his fault. He's the educator.
Right.
He has to take responsibility for being an educator. As I was saying to my girlfriend this morning, as I've said to many other people, the problem is that McLuhan is one of the great geniuses of insight in the 20th century, and therefore he should be quoted as such at the graduate, at the postgraduate, or whatever level. But he's not.
Yeah.
Why isn't it? Yeah. If he's not, then people like William Irwin Thompson should be realizing that
they should take on that responsibility. Now let me just supplement that. He's not a professor at Columbia. He does a 3 or 4 sessions sponsored by the dean at the Cathedral St. John and Divine. They just bring him in and he gives lectures, and they're for Lawrence Rockefeller. And the book is dedicated to Lawrence Rockefeller. They're for him, and he's only doing it for him. So Bill This is totally true. The book is dedicated to Lawrence Rockefeller. He's always open about it at the cathedral, that Lawrence Rockefeller wanted more input for Bill. So he arranged for Bill to come to the cathedral in the Lindisfarne Legacy there and lecture for once a week for 4 or 5 weeks on the history of consciousness, and they had to be taped and given to Lawrence. Then Bill, what Bill gets out of it is he eventually, after spewing off the stuff, gets some people to type it up. He then edits it, gives it to St. Martin's Press, puts a book out, and he makes a little money maybe. So it's a two-way thing. But it's not even academic. If it wasn't for me, Lawrence Rockefeller wouldn't have known the McLuhan thing, assuming Lawrence doesn't know that.
Well, if you believe that, I got a piece of land.
That's right, in fucking Venice and on Glendon Avenue. You're right about the responsibility, but Thompson is unique because he was lazy. And his audience, his fake audience, he didn't have to tell them because he was only doing it solipsistically for his own communication with Lawrence Rockefeller to continue to get funding.
Oh,
all right, so it was a total fake theater.
I'm glad you exposed another one of the sordid details.
I influenced,
which I think is a sordid detail, because I know plenty about some other sordid details, which I will go so far as to say that. I mean, not truly in a negative sense. I think part of the problem too with Thompson and Rockefeller both is that I do believe, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, that this process that apparently they're collaborating on is part of their own evolution individually. I'll give them that benefit of that doubt, but nonetheless, if you're somebody like Rockefeller who has, you know, I mean, like money is, it's beyond that money is any object
He is
of
money.
concern. Yeah, right. Then you don't need simply individuals such as William Irwin Thompson to give you an insight, because I know people who have gone to Rockefeller's ranch in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where apparently he has this ongoing open door policy to all the philosophers and researchers and you name it, in all the categories of research within the greater,
all the visual space categories.
And the people that I know who've been there are researchers from the UFO community. And the question is, like, when I've heard people talk about this, they go, well, you mean you were invited? Oh yeah, we went there for a 2-day, dangling conversation with Lawrence Rockefeller, because he wants to know the bottom line of UFO research. And so then, the other day, I was at the big store and I saw Thompson's book and I thumbed through it, but I didn't notice that one chapter someone brought to my attention is
later.
Later, I was talking to this guy who is an expert in, for instance, the material that's discussed here in the Ancient Astronaut Society newsletter.
Yeah.
Ancient Skies, official logbook of the Ancient Astronaut Society, which in an ancient astronomical and archaeological sense, bring out all the archaeological details that apparently Orthodox archaeologists don't know exist, that actually fly in the face of conventional thinking in terms of the lineality of human evolution, the evolution of intelligence and technology and civilization, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Now, what is it that you noticed in the book that was pointed out? You didn't notice, and he didn't just point out. This is the point.
He has a chapter that's devoted to the research of one of the people who is very prominent in this kind of research, namely Zacharias Sitchin,
Yeah.
who is truly phenomenal. I mean, you have to have this guy. He's wrote a series of books that are truly, you think about, this must be impossible that one guy could do all this. Apparently he did. Okay, so I found it very symbolic that even though, like in the case of your own, apparently, I didn't read this chapter, but a friend of mine who's read all these books and read that book told me that basically the conclusion that was inferred in Thompson's book was that, well, this is very interesting that Sitchin did all this research, but I'm not convinced that the ancient Sumerian texts can anyway signify the possibility that extraterrestrials came 400,000 years ago, which is quite a bit of chunk of time, and began a process of basically genetic engineering. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you were someone, now I'm going to skip ahead to someone like, such as the Rupert Sheldrakean.
No, you are you quoting Lawrence, or you? You said I'm here to tell you. You mean you?
Well,
or this guy, the guy.
Now I'm referring to myself.
Okay.
That, in my opinion, that in the Rupert Sheldrakean sense of morphogenesis, that if the process of phenomenology is rooted in a field effect of particulars at some level that's hyperdimensional, that actually results in things going through the formality of actually occurring, such as genetic engineering. Well, by definition, you can't have it both ways. Either you say that you believe that that's the truth, so we look into the current events and we say, well, what do we have? Well, on the stock market, the most potentially profit-worthy area of investment is genetic engineering. So if genetic engineering and biological engineering or biotechnology is the cutting edge of investment in technology here today, that's because perhaps the situation 400,000 years ago was that beings from somewhere else came here and started genetic engineering, and here we are. That, in some way, could explain a great leap and makes sense in a logical sense, but defies evolution or makes or helps us gain an insight into the two words creative evolution.
Yeah. Now you're saying Lawrence is just
Lawrence, I believe, knows more than he's letting on, but what he wants to know is what the cutting edge of research people know.
He's creating focus groups in that area.
He
wants to see where the citizens are.
As somebody characterized him, Lawrence Rockefeller is a resonant equivalent of the which family in the Renaissance was the Italian family of the
Medici?
He's like the modern Medici family.
Yeah.
For this current period.
And Thompson says that, gives him that tribute. He's always said that. Now, what's interesting is that Lawrence now your friend who who read that chapter
Right. He
and,
read,
and
he read the
sees that
chapter. I
Thompson
didn't-
waffles and
Right.
and gives up. Now here, I want to just say this, is that
he did the same thing that he did to you. He basically
he can't admit it.
Yeah.
He won't acknowledge it.
He
because,
wanted to deny
now,
that
there's two
there was-
points that,
yeah.
that I want to lead into here. Is the first thing is that Lawrence Rockefeller even is tired of Bill and is not
Oh.
refunding him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's going more into UFOs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you know, he does
No, I
the
know.
California
I mean, I
Institute.
know he's doing that, but
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, he's really he finds Bill too negative. In other words, Rockefeller's beginning to have an identity crisis, and he's not. He's sort of fucking trying to make a decision now because we're coming down to lock down Bob Rule. And I've been in his fucking group for 3 years, fucking tickling old Larry.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah. Now the thing is that. The point I made was, in the long run, was Larry, stop fucking dealing with Bill and catch up to what's happening to Bob and Connie. But the other point,
He may.
these guys learn. Oh yeah, and he funds the California Institute of Integral Studies.
Yeah, he also apparently, I heard, was about to give a lot of funding to the Ojai Foundation that had a lot of very controversial people speaking in there until he came in,
Till who came in
Lawrence.
and changed it?
Well,
Are you implying that they had
I'm-
controversial and then they don't have controversial?
Well, the schedule of speakers seemed to be much more comprehensive than subsequent to the fact that he was going to give them quite a bit of money, and then all the controversial people seemed to drop out, and then all they had was Buddhists.
Look at this. William Irwin Thompson on one side, Krishnamurti on the other.
Oh.
There's the dialectic, you know?
Yeah.
He's going from Thompson to Krishnamurti. He controlled Thompson, now he's going to control the Krishnamurti gang. All within that. It's right on my chart. There's more on that chart. It's the news of the day. This is the news right here.
And if Thompson did give the tapes to Lawrence, then he has heard you speak.
If I don't know how much, I don't remember if Bill taped the symposium. I don't think I mean the debate after. Other people did. But Bill would just make sure he got his lecture. Did you ever notice Bill starting the tape when we started? No, he never started the tape when we did the question period. As a matter of fact, the woman who typed up the stuff, who had the symposium, did not type up the symposium. So they edited out Bob's stuff. But by this year, look, see, what happened is that when Bill came in to do the final seminar, end of April, 1st of May, he had his book, and he read the foreword, which paid tribute to this group in New York and how much he hated it at the California Institute of Integral Studies. There's too many Terence McKenna flakies out there. He liked the literate stuff. What he really meant is that Bob was in New York and not in San Francisco. He read his preface, his dedication, and he got halfway through it and he started crying. He had to hold his tears back because he knew it was coming to an end, the whole thing, because the dean is not going to be the dean here anymore at the end of the year, and therefore the dean.
CIIS? At
No,
CIIS?
in Lindisfarne, the Cathedral of St. John's Divine.
Oh, that.
See, we're here in New York, and he is in his
okay.
foreword. If
Oh.
you read it, he puts down the California Institute of Integral Studies, how terrible it was
There's
out
too
there.
much psychedelia. and
Yeah.
all that.
And he loves to come back to New York because he pays tribute to the New York group. And
He
what
was
was
just nostalgic about the change.
And start
right?
crying.
And sort of start crying because also it's ending. He's not going to have that place anymore come January.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Isn't
over.
it-
The dean
okay.
who brought in Lindisfarne, who's a friend of Lawrence, is kicked out.
Right. Well,
retiring.
I acknowledge the fact that he, in what I heard, acknowledged or clarified the fact that it wasn't really truly Columbia University, but wasn't it the equivalent of like UCLA Extension or something? I mean, wasn't it? There was some some relationship, but not
years ago in Lindisfarne, but not in this way. There are
Oh.
Columbia students, he says in his forward, who would come and sit in, but they
Oh.
didn't get credits from it. But a
Oh,
close
oh, oh.
friend of Bill's, Robert Thurman, Uma Thurman's father,
Oh.
is the Columbia scholar of Buddhism in that gang and
Yeah.
the gang around the Dalai Lama. So Bill started crying, and then he controlled himself, and then he started to say, the punchline of his forward is that we must reappreciate McLuhan. And nobody knew he was going to say that. They all look at me, and it was a fucking ripple of shock. You know what I mean? So Lawrence will.
a Finnegan's Awake.
I mean, we got the book in there. We could fucking just go and read it, but I should read it too. But it's not important.
yeah.
You believe me.
No,
And the
I'm
point is that Lawrence at least would read the foreword and go, and then so I don't know how much Lawrence will put together. What the hell happened in December? Maybe that's why. You see, there's the McLuhan conspiracy. You got to defund Thompson because he's gone back to the McLuhan roots, which is in the chart.
That
So-
could be.
Yeah. So so Lawrence. I mean, when I did put together Marshall's archives after he died, organized his files, there were lots of letters between him and the Ford Foundation in the 50s and in the 60s, especially under the the later Carter guy, Saul Winowitz of Xerox, the organizing of a cover story for McLuhan in Time and the Ford and Rockefeller Foundation funding. There was very interesting arguments and debates with McLuhan and those guys how they were going to try to rip him off, and they couldn't rip him off, so they had to drop him. And he ended it with the Bilderberger letter, which we began with. That was his saying, "Kiss off to you guys," because he caused a real problem with the Bilderbergers. It came after that Bilderberger meeting. That letter is a result of Prince Bernhard writing him and saying, Marshall, you said that everybody in this room was stupid, and I hope you don't include me in that. And so Marshall writes in a letter, I know that it's going around that I was a bad boy at the thing. And he never answered his question directly whether he included Prince Bernhard, but he generally did include it because he said, I thought you Europeans were sophisticated. I was totally shocked that you knew nothing about the developments in your own part of the world coming out of Finnegan's Wake, and that would have helped you understand me. So we come full circle to the letter.
Yeah, we come full circle, so now we'll start on another circle and we'll come full circle.
Right, now I hold the thought, because I think the other part was that Bill, what was the other part? He started to cry the McLuhan, and so he's lost his funding, and Lawrence is funding UFOs.
Yeah. The McLuhan, and whether Lawrence heard you or not.
Right, but there was an... we'll have to retrieve that. It's gone.
Yeah.
The main point was how I guess it's whether Lawrence heard me or not. Well, it's written in the foreword of the book, you know, the McLuhan thing. But so everybody looked. That's right. Everybody looked, and they were shocked at me, and that's what Carolyn's referring to. And then Bill went into his lecture, and at this point he would start to go into a Finnegan's. He was going to do Finnegan's Wake, and he's going to do McLuhan, and he'd come to a point and he'd go, as Bob would say, or Bob, could you fill that in? And I started to supplement the fucking lecture. That's how bad it got in the last few lectures. And that's what Carol meant. What?
He'd say, am I right, Bob?
Yeah, whereas he would argue, you know, 2 years before, now he'd refer to me. And so actually I was the guy running the lecture.
Well, how can you be a scholar and take such pride? I mean, the thing about Thompson is that
he doesn't regard himself as a scholar. That's the point.
Well, he sure comes
on
that
was
like
the other
his
point.
Pride
I remembered.
Is the ultimate manifestation
That's right.
of pride and scholarship.
Now here's the point.
For God's sake, you know, quoting Yeats off the top of his head and all these amazing things. I mean, he is a scholar, and he's not a scholar.
Right, Randy. No. Here's the point. Now that was the other point. Thank you. You brought up the five holy offices are Menippean information creators, Menippean creators, and they all work on the big scale with evolution as well as the micro scale. And they all represent tactility. And then the Xenocronous imitation of tactility. Once Rai returned to essence, you had Menippean tactility in the computer environment. So an individual had to be an analogical mirror for Menippean tactility, and they would become Xenocronous. Computers naturally generate synchrony. So the Xenocronous Menippean tactile information progenitor would include the put on of looking like a scholar, but they don't have any point of view. They waffle. You can't pin LaRouche down and McLuhan and Thompson Crooker down because they're tactile. They learned that much, as explicit from McLuhan, about have no point of view in dealing with the situation. No reality tunnel. Predicting Bob, who would really have no reality tunnel beyond any of their fake non-reality tunnels. I have that in the first essay. The tetrad management has no bias. Yeah, they're pseudo-tetrad management. But the point is, they all are great because they approximate the ultimate takeoff and put on by being creators of information, but they don't identify any with it. So that's why Thompson, the average reader, says this guy knows a lot about scholarly things and keeps abreast of it. But Thompson himself does not believe in any of it, and that's his waffling on any point of view. So the service fact is that he doesn't commit himself on UFOs, is that he's a Menippean tactilist of information. The disservice is, hey, come on, Bill, you can do that so long. Bob's here. We now can know what happened, and why not listen to him? You don't have to play that game. That game was important from 60 to 90, but not after 1990. So I show up after 1990.
Okay, so he's a pawn in the hands in the greater scheme by the ultimate true core group of the Illuminati, and doesn't want to admit it.
That's right.
Because he is.
And he will admit it, Menippean-wise, every now and then. That's why, that's his joke. He dedicates his book to Lawrence Rockefeller, and he spends a lot of time in the book talking about LaRouche and the Rockefeller conspiracy. He's fully aware of the objections to what he's doing, but he's a Xenocronous Menippean. He says, fuck you, I'm dedicating this to the Illuminati. Even though he says the Illuminati's obsolete. So, you're right.
Maybe just a romantic opportunist.
That's his main theme, is he's trying to point out the obsolescence of romantic opportunism. He says that in his punchline in the book.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, but that's bullshit. He's using concepts which are obsolete and ideas and scholarly. He's a juggler of information. I have the quote in Emphatic Communion that the way the tetrahedromantry juggles information in all fields creates confusion, and there's no content in his book. There's no content in LaRouche, McLuhan, Dobbs, or any of them, who are mirrors of the pre-content era, 60 to 90. The real content now is Bob and Connie, which is content that's very hard to understand, but we can now assure you there is content, whereas there wasn't for 30 years. Because the user is the content. Now the user is Bob, the ultimate Grand Wazoo puppeteer and puppet victim, and so the user becomes the content, becomes archetypal, becomes the medium.
And the reason why we can go on and
Connie,
on.
yawning your head off.
Yeah.
Oh, because when you're yawning, you're learning, Jerry. Breakthrough. When you're getting tired, you know, because you're processing, you're learning. When you're yawning, you're learning. Well, you have this other thing. When you're laughing, you're learning.
Well, the reason why she can swoon is because, of course, like Chomsky was saying, it's actually the manifestation or the phenomenological realization of infinite possibilities of finite means.
Yes.
That was.
In other words, you can have great fun while being married.
Exactly.
Finite variety within a limited situation.
Well, that was great. I couldn't believe it when he said that. I go, that's right.
When did I say that?
No, I'm quoting Chomsky. This
when he said it, yeah.
The statement of,
of
finite uses of infinite uses of finite means. I mean,
well,
that
you know,
applies to the great eschatological
mysteries. Yeah, here's the thing about Chomsky. Why he is you know, a stick in the mud. Chomsky is a 19th century tetrad manager, and what was a 19th century unconscious tetrad manager? An anarchist. And Thompson is a fucking anarchist. That's his whole. He came out of anarchism. He believes in freeing things up so people can grow at their own rate. So he's not going to take any systems of artificial intelligence, blah blah blah, and knowledge and linguistic history to impose on people, because his ground is Paul Goodman. Let people grow as they are. Give them freedom. In the old romantic sense, which when they were still people. So he is a stick in the mud and obsolete, but he's necessary for the bureaucratic, what I call the second world. He's part of the second world, which is government bureaucracy, which and LaRouche has always argued with Chomsky. Second world. The first world is the now making, which McLuhan was an expert on. The fourth world is the Amazonian Gene Houston back to mythic Gaia. That's the fourth world back to Amazon, is Thompson. And the third world is Croker, who represents not, you know, Chomsky is hoiked up as the third world representative. The guy's going to save the dispossessed. But he's so much establishment, you need the Baudrillards and the postmodern and the Foucaults who want to wreck everything that Chomsky still uses. So Croker is a better advocate of the third world than Chomsky. But basically, that's the anarchistic level. Yeah. Well, he's not in there. No, he never could make it. He's a poor excuse of Bill Thompson, or whatever.
Oh yeah, Thompson's got a good rep.
You said again, I don't know if you said it before on the camera, that everyone's disappeared or people have disappeared. But give me a definition of people.
The definition of people is creative evolution.
Creative evolution. Yeah,
because I can back that up. People are two words. People are double conscious.
Creative evolution, or as this conference was held, which is also, well, here's another reason that just occurred to me. There was a conference.
He said
titled,
the sphere. Didn't you say what's the sphere of people? Look, there's your sphere.
Yeah. This was a conference called When Cosmic Cultures Meet. See that? Now, guess who was instrumental in being somewhat of at least, I don't know if he was a financial supporter, but at least on philosophical ground,
yeah.
was a supporter for the person who actually produced this conference held in Washington, D.C., none other than Lawrence Rockefeller. The guy who actually produced it is a man formerly of the, as a Senate aide to Senator Claiborne Pell, and his PhD in philosophy, I think, and formerly with the Office of Naval Intelligence, who has a little think tank called the Human Potential Foundation. His name is Dr. Scott Jones. And on May 27th through 29th of 1995, I believe, in Washington, D.C., they had a historic conference, and this was a historic conference. because of the people who were invited to speak, some of whom were UFO people, but other people who spoke there, where it was an international thing. This guy here, I've talked to this guy, he also has a think tank. He is a futurist specializing in national security. He wrote a futurist book called The Road to 2015, Profiles of the Future, and he actually has been known to consult with high-level officials in the Pentagon about particulars of the UFO phenomenon. Here's another guy, Jerome Glenn. He's a lawyer with the American Council for the United Nations of the United Nations University, who is a futurist, and he has a book called Space Trek: The Endless Migrations. And any number of other people who are either futurists or well, here's Zechariah Sitchin, the guy that Thompson wrote this author
Put down on.
Author to put down on.
Yeah.
Charles Tart, who worked at the Stanford Research Institute on parapsychology and telepathy experiments. You know, I mean, this is truly a revelatory juxtaposition or meeting of minds on the possibility that when cosmic cultures meet, we better be prepared in a diplomatic sense to deal with the significance of it. So here's their little promo. It says, what will be our agenda? Or what will our agenda be? Have humans thought through consequences of such a meeting? Will we know the right questions to ask? Who should represent us? Apparently Bob will represent us. Who speaks for the visiting others?
I want to show you something here. In my chart, I have 22, Dobbstown versus 22/14. 22 is Atlantis, that's Rockefeller. 14 is LA and, let's say, Bill Gates and Steven Spielberg. Yeah, they are. Atlantis is built on visual space, so there's still a banking situation. Even though it's disappeared, the banking legacy is in the 22 gang. The information as the economic ground comes out of LA, or symbolized by LA, and just making news, now making with software. That's 14. This is a Rockefeller-funded gang, and look at their number. It's fucking the Folgers, area code 22040. 4 can be made 22. You got 2 22s there. This is definitely the clue to the Rockefeller. Now 6 is Bob number. You see, this is
really?
This so resonates with Bob and what you just read the agenda, because Bob is at least a 6. He's beyond the pentat. He's a hexad. All right. So this is these guys, the 22 faction trying to hijack Bob. The 14 faction trying to hijack Bob is Independence Day. That movie. So
yeah,
I appreciate you letting me know this, because I know where these guys come from. I know what they're trying to cover up, and I know the whole situation and how to do it. And it's true. When you read Stank's book, in retrospect, you'll see that Bob did communicate with the Axis and the Bootians, and was the one who brought this about. And this is what's very nice.
We can have that for.
Oh, I'll take this. Yeah. For the
point.
CD-ROM as a joke, you know. There's the enemy voice. So the evidence of what my case. Yeah.
And anti intelligence gathering.
Right.
And,
Now
surreptitious.
So Lemurian is L.A. Bill Gates is Lemuria. Rockefeller is Atlantis, and Dobbstown. See, Cosmic Cultures meeting is happening right here. We've got 6 Cosmic Cultures meeting right here, focusing on this dialectic. But this is Dobbstown, and we're exposing 22 and 14, and we don't even have to do any work. Somebody will bring the information, the evidence. See, this is slack. I didn't have to do any fucking research to find this situation. You bring it naturally. It's democracy. I look at it and give the meaning, and we follow it away. See, this is slack. Hey, it's very easy to be Bob, you know, if you're Bob.
Yeah. It's very easy to do. As I think I've mentioned to Jerry, as a researcher, and in all modesty, I do my own variation on the theme of research. And actually, I mentioned this to you when I spoke to you when I was the last final call of the final program of the final Walter Bauer. But I said, in the end, when I had to go fast forward and he was trying to get me off the air, that the way I do my research, in fact, is through synchronicity. No one has enough time or money or to go everywhere and do everything.
They news gather. Time Magazine uses synchronicity. They all do.
You have to be able to do that, because if you don't, you'll never get it all in time to make any use of it.
And you can get a mystical feeling of that. You say, well, geez, obviously we're all unified since '67, because since '67, that feeling that people say in the popular culture, you know, they use synchronicity, they use ESP in a popular level. They know that things come, they go, when you're ready, it'll come, and people have had this in their jobs, and all levels of experience, because we're unified.
Yeah.
Now, to wake people up to the fact of unity, you got to go around fucking being disunified and fuck them up like I did the thing there. You got to be xenocracy. You got to create strange mirror of synchronicity. And what happens? It's very difficult how I try to explain in the article. What made Brussels and all the Zappa and all the Holy Office did, they tried their ass. They busted their ass to be as irritating as possible, but they could never get around the fact it always fell into place and helped unity. Or at least mirrored unity. And then in the long run, it mirrored Bob, who was the unity. You know, that's the point. See, that's the strange part of xenocracy. We become real vicious and idiots and argue like this woman, the Native American, became a Rai fucking vicious of doing her agenda, and you had the paradigm of Bob to sort of frame it and could see the joke, and even knew, I'm not even going to fall victim to her viciousness. I know that she is unconscious. And you were conscious, and you didn't even have to enter into the game.
Yeah, she became dogmatic, and I thought it was like she doesn't realize that she is doing that by telling you how to live your life. You know,
she's being xenocratic. She's being an asshole, and she doesn't know the economy wants more assholes like that. You know, and so she's preserving something that's going to undermine her. But what she's trying to preserve is irrelevant. So she should be damn glad that she's an asshole preserving the culture that's going to wipe her out, because we don't need that old culture. That's the amazing thing. In the end, she can't help but help unity.
Yeah, right.
And it's xenocracy. Synchronization is using, getting information and creating a new. They got deadlines, journalists. They got to get fucking a magazine every year and every newspaper. And they're lucky. The things come in and they just feed off. They eat people. They kill people. Kill information. Get and they put it out. Mirror it back out. But the xenocratists, like coming out of the archetype of Finnegans Wake, take the most bizarre fucking thing, try to make it as unconnected as possible, and they still create a better effect than Time magazine. So Frank created the concept of xenocracy, where he would say, take a solo by one musician from one concert, take a solo from another, totally unrelated concert, and say, these guys will never meet. But just for the hell of it, let's see if we put them together and have a song and make it work. And he would sort of try to create synchrony out of strange, impossible potential. And he would do it. Sometimes it wouldn't. He would include the fact that it wouldn't, but he was tetradding, pentadding. And that's what I do. I fucking make myself available, and they keep showing Bob Lockdown, Bob Roll. It keeps fucking being proven back to me. You know? And you just did it.
And it's getting better and better.
Yeah, it's getting.
We keep coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah. No, that's what I wanted to mention, is that your call was fucking, that was xenocracy. Because Board is very important in Club 22. Not so much in Club 14, even though he was born on May 14th. So he's in between 14 and 22, and but he came out of New York, and now he lives in Tucson. The point is that Forward, his phrase, Operation Mind Control, is the whole thing that I was saying earlier, that we enjoy the fact that we're mind controlled, collectively and privately, because we're not here anymore, our brains are gone, there's nothing to be manipulated, so that we can make fun out of the idea that there's conspiracies, or we can enjoy the historical fact that there was conspiracies. And Bower's book is a great book on the history of the conspiracy, and in my entrance into making my available in popular media was helped by him. He helped raise Bob's profile.
I mean, he popularized conspiracies
and then he popularized me.
Mind control.
He's always been. He was the first interview. One of the first interviews Bob Marshall did in 1984 with Walter Bower, and Bob Marshall was the colleague, the guy who prepared the ground for Bob Dobbs in '87. But Walter Bower. And like, I didn't know I was going to say what I said, but it was coming to the last show, and the last caller comes in, evokes Walter Bard, where I get to say the punchline. It began with Walter Bard and ends with Walter Bard. That was fucking incredible how that happened. That was satellite conducting. A great conclusion to the fucking musical, done by you. Even though you didn't know it was going to happen, and it all happened. That's slack, right? I just had to. Dave just says, okay, we got Bob here, bring the calls in, so everybody's preparing unwittingly, starts calling in, and then if you listen to tapes of those shows, they always become complete pieces in retrospect.
Oh, they do.
You know, it's amazing the topics that come up.
As a matter of fact, to emphasize a thought that I had for this day, my priorities, as you can see with this book and this chart and all this stuff, are actually what I will define as an extension of a call. I forgot which program this occurred on, but a call that occurred a couple of times, but one in particular by a guy who calls himself Professor Illuminatus. Now that guy is on the ball.
Yeah.
And he had some very interesting things to read. And
In my show or in other shows?
on your show.
Yeah.
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 Apparently he called a couple of times. At
Yes,
least
he
two
did.
that I know of.
Yeah.
But he not being here today, I will give him honorable mention because he very eloquently brought in valuable
Mirrors for
reference
Bob.
points, mirrors.
He'd
Yeah.
bring the Illuminati, mythic stage of the Illuminati, the historical conclave of information in that field, and he'd say, Bob, is this you? Hold the mirror up, and then I would be able to go beyond that. So he was a necessary mirror to show that Bob was beyond that. He wasn't just being the Grand Wazoo, you know.
Yeah.
That Bob was that was the usefulness of him. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. But the thing that I'm connecting is that his concerns are in some way the things that I'm interested in.
Yeah,
as well. To correlate this kind of like, this is I think somewhat of a reality tone too, but to correlate the elements therein to your
yeah, that my chart has these elements.
greater
the
chart,
Earth,
more expansive. You know.
Yeah, because now the Illuminati, Nelson loves the Illuminati guy for his tone when he would go, Bob, you're in fine form today. It's just great. Nelson, he would say that for years after. He'd go, Bob. Whenever I did a spiel and he'd appreciate it when he needed a briefing, he'd go at the end. He always does the punchline. He'd quote the woman. He'd go, Bob, you're in fine form today. Isn't that how he said it? How did he say it?
Yeah, I think it's got a
Okay.
very
Pretty well
resonant
put,
voice.
yes.
Jared,
you're
Jared,
fine.
have you ever met Professor?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we've almost
He-
interacted with him.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, did he want to do a dialogue? Was that
No, I
last year?
want him to do a dialogue
Last
with you,
year.
but he's not.
He's nervous
He's
because
self-conscious.
he's a little resistant of Bob down lock.
Well,
Love down low.
he ought to take the challenge.
What?
He ought to accede to the challenge.
Yeah, you've
It
taken
is a
you've
challenge.
taken the leap. He is you. You have the same interests, and you bypassed him by taking the challenge.
Yeah.
Well, but this is the challenge. The challenge is the what the title of the book, I guess. McLuhan's book, Take Today, right? We have
Yeah.
to take this day and go with it.
Yeah.
You
Take
know.
the now making and fucking beat the shit out of it.
Well,
Not
you know,
abuse it.
I mean, to some degree, it is frustrating, and in all modesty, I'll go so far as to say it is because.
What's frustrating?
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
No.
Yeah,
we haven't got to the noun yet. We have the verb first. The noun's coming up. Okay, what?
Yeah,
Or the
well,
object, I guess.
An occupational hazard of synchronistic linguistics is that there's too many tangents.
Yeah, that's why we need law
To go off on.
That's Finnegan's Wake. It's a nothing but a book. That's the essence of Manipian satire is digression.
Okay, so let me digress to the
Yeah.
point, and that is that once you begin to realize enough of this to become in some way, however minimal, articulate on it, there are very few people that you can talk to. because
That's the
as
risk.
they said, no one knows. Who was
That's
saying
why
that?
Bob and Connie are the only two people.
Oh, that's what we mean. Everything's disappeared. And when you join Dobbs, you holy fuck, I'm all alone now. I hope Bob stays with us because.
Population 2?
What's that?
Population 2.
Is that a book by Ehrlich? Or?
No, when the road into Bobstown is the population.
Oh,
Ah,
yeah. Twin Peaks, two fucking peaks. But what were you going to say? Yeah, this is a good thought to go on. The life at Dobbstown, we're now having experience. We have a testimony here.
Well, and this is much as of an education for me as the literal dialogue itself, by having the opportunity to speak to somebody who knows what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Even
it's a
though I'm not
lonely
trying-
world. Yeah.
Even though I'm still trying.
Well, I used to
doing my
say in
best.
Toronto, I say, okay, Bob's on. We're not going to kill people. Okay, call in, get in line to be killed. And then everybody goes, yeah, kill me, Bob, kill me, Bob. It's even one of Stang's phrases, kill me or feed me. But the point of the killing is we're going to make you so fucked out, so isolated with your awareness that you're going to be lonely and you're going to think everything's disappeared. And that's the disease that Bob creates. But we need that because we want people to realize how everybody has disappeared. Everybody is fucking lonely. And that's what McLuhan said in 1971 in his hometown lecture. The modern disease we have today is the feeling unwanted.
Okay, well, hold that
Feeling
thought,
dead.
because now...
Hold that thought.
One of the tools for explication that I use often is using literal references to make points. Certainly the type of thing that you're saying. Notice this says hard disk. Here's a photograph of a computer screen. Check this out.
Rest in
On
peace.
June 3rd, 1996, in the business section called Monday Technology Special.
Not Tuesday
and
technology special.
Monday Technology Special.
That's
Yeah.
spinning its wake, man, because he had 7 days, 7 days.
Oh, he did?
Oh yeah, like the days of the week is the biblical archetype, and then you get the Monday
Oh, you do?
now.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, read Joyce Marshall's Trivial and Quadrivial. What's the subtitle? James Joyce, Trivial and Quadrivial.
Yeah.
Great essay in Marshall's, where that's the essence of the spinning wake structure on what's called the hebdomadal, the 7-day cycle.
Oh. No, I don't go to the to study group because I work during that time period. But, in
But I
any
didn't
case-
say anything about a study group.
No, but he has a cellular on all that.
Oh, okay.
So I
Yeah,
don't-
all right.
Otherwise, I'd probably be more
Look,
familiar.
there
with
it is. Yeah.
Right here. So check this out. When I saw this, I go, well, here, this proves Bob's point.
Yeah.
But these people are making it, and well, they don't know they do. I don't think they do, but maybe they
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
but they wouldn't cop to it even if they did. Okay, so check this out. Here it is, the fading metropolis. The explosion of the internet is only a recent phenomenon, but already there are signs that the ethereal world being built in cyberspace will have a significant impact on the quote-unquote real world of brick and mortar. In other words, the virtual versus actual, another paradox. Cities grew in importance because they provided a physical place, but what they're really saying is that, here it is, it's an invisible revolution, says Thomas Heron, researcher for the Claremont Research Institute. Although the scope and direction of this change is still unclear, it still spells trouble, troubled times for cities because they're going to disappear.
Yeah.
So here's this apocalyptic image
Yeah.
called "Rest in Peace" on the computer screen, and it's an
New York?
apocalyptic, you know, it's like the Blade Runner bill, all
Yeah.
gone to shit in the handbasket. There it goes, crumbling in cyberspace.
Now look at this. June 3rd? It should be June 4th because all memos to Prince Charles that I put out are dated June 4th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the first one, the first
Well,
album is
yeah.
June. So this is getting close. They would have shifted away from Bob slightly. But the thing is that the disappearance point. This is where it is as you tune into this lonely zone, you then start to see how much Bob is proven all the time. So it's hard to prove that to someone else and communicate it. And
Data points are of great assistance. But
the what?
data points are valuable.
Points of
for-
greatest resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is you got here, as we go into the 90s, since Bob's reality is the ruling reality from 1990 on, as you get more aware of Bob's reality, you see more and more they're proving Bob's stuff daily in the media. And now this is very important that he talks about the etherealized. Now note I have LaRouche.
Yeah, the ethereal world.
Yeah, that you got the 5 elements: water, fire, air, and earth, and I bring in the Chinese element, ether. Okay? So why would I have LaRouche and radio satellite as ether?
Oh, I know, that was one of my questions.
Yeah,
So,
since LaRouche
please
is so
answer that.
against the concepts of Gnostic etherism and occultism. But the point is that everything is the opposite. We are rebuilding, this is the etheric body being made, the etheric city, digital commerce, and that supports visual space. It supports the orbiting banker, the solar bankers, and it's the city, but it's an orbiting city. So LaRouche offers himself as an alternative Big Brother. So he is the mirror for the Big Brother that's building itself in the solar banking kingdom. And it's a replay of the 19th century, 1840 to 1900. And the newspaper is his symbol, newspaper. And he's a spinning hadron. The newspaper is a tiny, you know, a subatomic particle spinning. That's why ether, this is the connection I make from this. This is Bob reality, the visual space, 1840, 1900. Via LaRouche, it comes to us in the newspaper medium, all predicted by this level of the fucking chart.
Yeah, it's a nested resonance.
That's right.
A newspaper photograph of a computer screen of the disappearing city with the rest in peace, and there's the headstone on the gravesite.
Which is rip off as well as take
right.
on. Rip off. And
Yeah, right.
That's where if you analyze slang, the phrase rip off may have come to the people in the 60s because everything disappeared in 67. So we really were rested in peace. So the popular hallucination of language talking about itself says it's rest in peace, but no, let's make it rip and rip off, and we were ripped off, and it says more than rest in peace, we were ripped off.
Well, that's why these people were pissed.
Yeah.
Because they invested in all these buildings
Yeah.
and in fact, it says right in here, can you believe it? It says right in here that because of the computer technology, it goes on and on, you know?
Yeah, it goes on as listing the symptoms.
I almost had to underline the whole thing. Didn't I?
Yeah, you did. The information revolution is just beginning. Within 5 or 10 years, going to reduce the demand for commercial real estate. Now, the point is that the information revolution happened in the 60s. This is a homeopathic retrieval as well as a Xenocrates homeopathic cliché probe of a condition that's not a problem. It disappeared a long time ago. So Lawrence is so whacked out. He's trying to connect with real estate. He knows he can't get real estate on the Earth, so he hopes to make contact with the UFOs so he can either buy Jupiter or wherever, the Pleiadians. He wants to make a real estate connection. And the Bootians are fucking, that's a good one. He's trying to find, and so this is the universal mythic stage in my chart here.
Yeah.
The universal mythic
Right in a
stage.
nutshell.
Yeah, the universal mythic stage.
Are you sure you're not dreaming this up?
Finnegan's Awake, you know, it's based on a dream, remember? Finnegan's Wake.
Oh, yeah.
This is very important. You take the two charts. This is really a good one. From 60 to 77, computers a technological government. The popular government is the universal stage, is contact with the ETs, close encounters of the third kind, the popularization of contact with real estate from not in our solar system, but from way billions of years of miles away.
Result of space shuttles and satellites.
Yeah, the result of the implosion,
Yeah.
no time and space. So we can still keep the hologramic illusion that there must be space out there billions of miles away, even though it's locally disappeared. So it's a decentralizing of left hemisphere and right hemisphere. We now have Rockefeller funding Columbia genetic engineering, but also funding the right hemisphere wackos like Thompson. You know what I mean? He's funding both because their both brains are obsolete.
And the Buddhists at the Ojai Foundation.
Right, he's funding everybody, and which keeps money going, which doesn't exist. So in this thing, the popular archetype in the 60 to 77 phase of the solar system, the popular archetype where the user, the citizen, is monarch of, in the period from 77 to 90, is the universe. So that's why Rockefeller, trying to contact the citizens, invites the citizens to come in and tell them what fucking part of the universe they're from and what real estate options they have. It's so logic, but it's all gone by 1990. So I show up in 93 to fuck up the Lawrence Rockefeller real estate deal because the only real estate left is Dobbstown, which is the opposite of two numbers, 22 and 14. It's the number 00 with a 1 on it. It's 100. It's 100 letters of Finnegan's Wake. So the new real estate is contact with Bob. It's a real state. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
I always get amazed at what I come up with as I get into these situations.
Self-realization.
Look at Al. The great touting Thomas or the board skeptic. How are we doing, Al? Are we making some new things for you, or is it all the old stuff?
Yeah, no.
We're making some new stuff for you? Good.
Are you just recording this in the mental? No.
Yeah, are you archiving or co-creating?
Yeah, are you
Yeah,
archiving?
there's always
or-
something good that comes up and then you keep going.
I keep going back to it?
No,
Or-
it's something I sort of want to...
We're pushing you forward. We're making progress. We're moving, running on the spot, and look like we're making forward movement. Now, are you a Chinese, Korean, or Japanese, or what? What's your background genetically,
I'm a
racially?
African woman.
Now look, you get fired from Doorstone if you start endorsing the party line. We don't want zombies. You have to form your own fucking church.
No.
Yeah. So now go back to I'm here. I'm offering real estate. You've got to remember your racial thing because that's what you look like to me. You have not disappeared when you're here. You look like something from those races. So what are you?
Well, my grandparents came over from Japan.
So you're Japanese American.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Japanese, they go back and they meet with who knows what before. All those Asian races come from some source
Yeah,
we
they
don't
spread
know.
out.
They come from Lemuria. You're actually Lemurian. Yeah. No, the Lemurians are the ones who went from Lemurian to the Asia. And that's why the split between the East and the West is the difference between Atlantis and Lemuria, the founding civilization.
I would agree with that for the sake of making a contribution.
Yeah.
Because there's a guy who is kind of like a very popular workshop inspiration in the New Age workshop scene who's adopted, he's American, but he has adopted a New Age pseudonym, which is Drunvalo Malkizmo.
Yeah, I've read the book. Everything you know in this book. What is it? What's the guy who wrote Bob Frizzell. I know the book.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, you know his book? It's
No.
What's the
I
title?
don't.
Mark Freed's book. It's everything in this book is true, but it ain't. You know, there's some title like that. Everything in this book is made up, but it's true.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I know. Have you been to one of his seminars? This Drumbelow guy?
No, but I have a tape of kind of like a compendium of
And
things.
he uses that name.
Well,
That's his guru.
Yeah, Drunvalo Melchizedek. Okay,
Yeah.
so this guy, I think I can attribute the following to him. When he was saying that way back during the Lemurian epoch here, epoch, the people who were the individuals comprising the epoch reached a certain level of technological sophistication, or a level of technological acuity, and then actually misused it and helped destroy the whole thing. And now the descendants of those people which is bringing me back to this.
We all came from the African woman. You know, he was right what he said.
Right. According to this theory, the people who are now the closest descendants to the Lemurians are the Native Americans, but anthropologically, there's the theory that the Native Americans are essentially Orientals who came, at some point in time from the Orient, through over land bridges or whatever it was, getting back to such and such. That may be the case, may not.
Well,
but in any case,
one thing they do is they can check genetics, and they find that the guys who are furthest down, like South America, they're furthest from what the Asians are for some reason. Does that mean that there was somebody here? Like if you go up closer north, then it becomes more Asian. But
yeah, you're right.
Was there somebody here before that mixed and diluted it? Or
Yeah, I think this is all a process of creative evolution.
Yeah,
but
and another thing, remember, the fuckers who are doing this measurement are wrong because they're operating with some faulty things. So they're looking at data and interpreting it from their erroneous paradigms. If we had access to the data, we might be able to look at it differently.
Oh yeah, because
so
they have a bias.
anything they say is bullshit, you know.
Everything they say is bullshit.
Yeah, including what the other guys say. Everybody's bullshitting. BS. That is.
But I was just making a generic reference point.
Bob shit.
Two words.
Yeah, 2 letters, 2 worlds. I remember making something out of BS a couple of years ago. I can't remember what it was.
That's your whole gross paradigm.
Yeah. That's Bob Gross. Bob's gross brother, Bob Skinner. But no.
Bob Skinner.
What were we talking about?
Well,
What were you talking
the
about?
possibility that there is a twofold.
Melchizedek, are you going to go into Drumbala, or are we finished with that?
No, I was just.
Oh, you were doing it him, right?
Yeah, I was making a twofold genetic correlation here, but
Oh,
possibly,
I get a great
hypothetically,
Yeah.
that according to this guy, the Lemurians are now can be seen as the Native Americans, and that the Native Americans are rooted in Oriental.
Now look at this. This is really important. Finnegan's Wake, from page 1 on, page 3, always has the parallel. Finnegan refers to Huck Finn and Mark Twain. Joyce knew that American culture was doing something new that was affecting Europe. So he has the history of America all through the history of Ireland. They interpenetrate. On the first page he has Dublin on Okanoe River, which is a place in Georgia founded by Irish, and he has that reference point in the first page. So he's talking about Dublin in Ireland and Dublin, America. Now, a great line in Finnegan's Wake is, when the West shall shake the East awake, ye shall have the night for morn. He's always playing off the dialectic for the global theater of East and West. Now, Wyndham Lewis's buddy wrote a great book in 1948 called America and Cosmic Man. What you have in America is the meeting of the Lemurians and Atlanteans, the Columbus and the Spanish with the Native Americans. That was the meeting in a new industrial period, the Gutenberg Galaxy, of the Lemurian Atlantis. That's why they were so incompatible, and then the Lemurians got beat up, and then they get retrieved in the Lemurian phase of my chart. That's why America is such an amazing place and is so strong as a universal archetype, because it's the meeting place of Atlantis and Lemuria.
Yeah.
And that fits my chart.
Yeah. Now, referring back to this Native American woman that I saw yesterday, she was very concerned about the preservation of the purity of the race. But I said to her, indirectly through another individual who made this comment, she said, the more you understand about these forms of intermarriage, she was her birthright was, like everyone, through whatever movements and the breaking downs of the barriers and the boundaries, and that people are allowed to exceed marriage taboos and intermarriage outside their group. Okay, so I said to the woman, so that's the way it is. Now that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So the Native American woman was going to move back to the reservation to protect the purity of the race, even though she was partly white, because she just felt that that was a necessary thing so she could protect what little left there is or whatever. And then that brings us full circle yet again to this problem that people seem to have, or dis-ease, that the nature of the time within we find ourselves is genetically eschatological as well as technologically
That's my
eschatological.
chart. I have genetic stuff, technological, biological, earth, air, fire. I've got all the systems there.
Yeah, so ultimately it's all going to merge into some other type of homogeneity.
Here's
Which will be more creative and more...
Homogeneity, that sounds like lockdown Bob Rule. Everybody matching and xenocronizing with one person, or Bob and Connie. So it sounds fascist, but it ain't.
Individualized collective consciousness.
Yeah. So look, here's a description of what you just said about her trying to preserve her genetic gene pool. Myth is, from 77 to 90, the hologram world is a visible figure amidst clashing universal bureaucracies, complemented by mythic government lockdown, complements of satellites around. Myth is a whole culture, or mixed corporate media, in action, as I explained at the beginning of this memo. However, the satellite is an extension of the theorization of a whole culture. Therefore, from 90 to 2020, we'll witness Orpheus tuned the whole world, battles of mythic stages, tribal and techno-solipsism. She's tribal solipsism, while Bill Gates is techno-wired solipsism, trying to retrieve the computer environment. To run cover for lockdown of Bob Rule, which is what you just prophesied, in response to discontinuous hidden grounds of tiny diluted homeopathic retrievals, homeopathic meaning combination of homeopathy and hologram. But she's a mythic stage, and they were doing that seriously in the underground, all these different people from 77 to 90, but then became obsolete so it could be marketed, and that's why the New Age and the Alternative Nation blossomed after 1990, focusing on Bob's roots in Seattle and Kurt Cobain. But basically, the mythic stages is this political correct disease, people fighting for it and preserving themselves. That is part of the economy. So you have successful workshops, successful people publishing, you know, and supporting the Indians, you know, the native Indians.
Yeah, the indigenous pre-literate.
Yeah, I call them Indians just to be a right, do viciousness for the hell of it. You know what I mean? And what now? I had a great now. This chart keeps talking about epics. It's epoch, and you say epic.
Oh, epics and epochs. You're right. I was mispronouncing that.
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
But that was great. The mistake helps because this is an Apillion.
Well, being really true artists are realizing how to use mistakes to your advantage, and then you never make any.
Yeah, you be stupid, be a cliche, and create archetypal intensity.
That's what artistic creation is all about.
Now we're coming to create evolution. That's very good. Now, Phatic communion is an Apillion. An Apillion is a traditional Western form, a small epic. So this is the small epic or epoch of Bob and Connie from 1960 to 1990. So Bob, this chart is the CD-ROM map for the epoch of Bob and Connie.
Epoch, right.
Coming into 1990, that 30-year period, 1990 to 2020, but anticipated by all the holy offices from 1960 to 1990.
Well,
Isn't that neat, Alan?
It is. Yeah,
Not that you'll get anything out of it, you know. Not that we'll give you a job. Not that you'll get slack, Alan, you know.
Well, but as you said...
as I said, I promised it, didn't I?
Well, that brings up something you said before. You said that one of your jobs is to become so aware of everything that you become alone or lonely in a way.
Yeah, was it your job or said that was my job?
Oh well, our job.
Yeah, was to become electrically autonomous and feel the loneliness that he's talking about. That's what he was talking about.
So that's what our goal is, pretty much. I mean, will we sort of go through some sort of?
No, because 22 is split. It's two splits mirroring two splits, and that's the visual space. Then we come to electric reunification, where I return the essence. So the fourness that was implied in the split 2-2 come together to get 4. 4 is balanced with 1. All right. So oneness is there since I return the essence, and then you do a fake tetrad and be a xenocronous. Now the unity is there. The 1 is unified, and you're not alone, but you pretend you're alone to experience the new human dimension, which was the original reason we created the human dimension, was to become assholes and be alone and separate from spirit. So we've got to find a new way to be human again, to be alone, but it's a fake alone because you can't be alone anymore because we've merged.
Humans are a social being.
Beg your pardon?
Humans are social beings.
And identity comes out through social conflict.
It's kind of like when they say some of the
Thymos.
Zen
Yeah.
or Buddhist type people, they'll say, when you're a baby, you aren't aware that you're alone.
Right.
But you need to become alone, and then you can go to a further stage by merging with the rest of the...
They're right. They say you need to be alone, but then when they talk about merging, that's all irrelevant now because we merged virtually and physically. You know, Cosmowares point out that physiologically in the first nature, Ra is part of first nature. That's why these are the elemental forces. These are the elements at the top, Ra, Eloi, 2. That's first nature, though we've never had access to. And they are the four forces, and I had Bob in there. They're the elementals. And then these are the human technological mirrors of it.
I'm sure this is what these people mean too when they say, you know, the
Right.
earlier pieces of humanity were bisexual in the way he.
Now that's
he
what's really good
defined
about Thompson. He does do a good perspective relating
it. He does.
biology to the primal forces, like the prokaryotic cell, which was the cell before division, which was he explains how Steiner and this kind of work is really talking accurately about original biology. And when we split, we started to become on the way to reproduction and then the creation of the human cycle with the anaerobic bacteria.
Yeah,
You see?
anaerobic.
Yeah, prokaryotic, then the transition is anaerobic. No, the cyanobacteria. No, sorry. Eukaryotic is the biological term for the first thing that divides itself and can reproduce itself. The transition from prokaryotic to eukaryotic is the anaerobic and the cyanobacteria. Now, the Palestinian...
Blue-green algae.
Yeah, so what he goes into this great parable of when the new medium of oxygen was created, it obsolesced the prokaryotic and created the ground for the eukaryotic. And he says, he then makes, following tetrad management, he makes a sociological metaphor. He says that the Palestinians, who are suppressed in this new situation, they're the odd man out in the rise of the various mythic stages. So they're like the prokaryotic cell. They've been forced down into the dark regions and can't have access to the electric oxygen, so they rebel. And the fairy tale parallel to the rebellion is Rumpelstiltskin, who is an elemental, and he demands the death of the firstborn if he's going to allow humans to run around, or he's going to allow eukaryotic cells to have dominance and force him into the background. So Rumpelstiltskin is a prokaryotic cell who commits terrorism because he was the firstborn. He was the original form before it was divided. And he's like Rai. Or actually eukaryotic is Rai, because if you think of the split, but the first split was the prokaryotic. But then the split into two, creating life.
Now it's factionalizing in all kinds of groups and
Right. And disappearing and being retrieved for entertainment purposes, while the reunification has happened with Bob and Connie, who are unified to become the original Rumpelstiltskin prokaryotic cell again. So Rai is Bob, so Bob acts out the Rai, which was anticipated. And the parables are that Rumpelstiltskin says he was firstborn and then he got fucking knocked out. So you got to always give me if you want to continue running around and being you're the secondborn, but you're taking over, the ground allowed you to take over, then you need to make a sacrifice to me by giving me a symbol of my kin, which are the firstborn. So all your firstborn must be sacrificed to me. So the firstborn were the 10 holy offices, and Bob appropriates them and then disputes them out. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that up for some reason. Thompson, he proves what I just said, because he lays that, what I just said. He makes a metaphor that the Arabs, the Palestinians, are prokaryotic cells demanding the death of the firstborn, which is the first world in the Western imperialism. They're going to keep doing terrorism until we acknowledge them.
I'm sure that they probably will, especially since they have continued to divide into ever-increasing numbers of factionalism, and therefore Arafat can't control it.
Actually becoming Western, actually being they actually, now that's where they all merge together. They actually become CIA eukaryotic cells, sponsored by the Mr. Wheaton's thesis. They actually aren't Arabs anymore. The elemental thing that blew up TVA is Rumpelstiltskin, but Rumpelstiltskin includes all these factors from 1960 to 1990, so you can't really define, like a Finnegan's White page, who the hell did it. The point is the force was retrieved. Rai was retrieved. It's viciousness for the hell of it. You know what I mean? They blow up these things, viciousness for the hell of it.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy, which means to breathe together. Now 1 is breathing together, and 4 is the tetrad guy becoming pentan doing a conspiracy to violate the 1. That's xenochrony. And so they keep doing terrorism, but it brings people together. So Rumpelstiltskin can't win, but he will continue to fucking do vicious. It's just for the memorabilia nostalgia when they could do it and fool people, or create a bad effect.
Oh yes, I think that the public opinion is becoming ever more pronounced in support of the basic plight of the Palestinians. I mean, they don't call Palestinians Palestinians for nothing.
Yeah.
Palestinians are Palestinians because it is Palestinians. They just changed the name on them, and it didn't protect the innocent because now the innocent are being.
So we can God bless Gallo for making the AIDS virus. You know, I mean, disease is an art form. That was a great action. It was anarchy. It refurbished the mythic stage of Christian fundamentalism. Made it say, yeah, there is a problem if you fuck everybody. You get fucking killed. You get sex. And it reinforced that old moral, the isomorphic thing. And it also brought the gays together and create Gay Nation, which William Burroughs advocates in the documentary on him that he wants to be director of CIA for the Gay Nation. You remember that?
He does, huh?
And he wanted to organize terrorist things against the heteros. So everybody benefits from any issue that happens.
Yeah, as long as you realize how you can.
As long as you hear from Bob about how that happened.
Yeah.
Of course, very lonely, but you're not alone. But it feels lonely when Bob's away. so when you can't talk to anybody, you say, well, Bob ain't come back for another 6 months. Well, be alone for 6 months, until Bob comes back.
Do research.
Or do research, preparing xenochrony, and like Scott did research, and then he was able to have that great talk we had last night. Which year I think what we'll do when we take a break, we should play the segment, my performance, my first performance at the thing that he can see and deal with what I say. You know what I mean? That's only 15 minutes. Just do it, and then he agreed, and then we'll come back and do more.
Oh yeah, that would be insightful. I wanted to be there in any case, and now I can be.
Yeah, I can be there
virtually.
Yeah.
Or just carnally.
Right.
I can do
Look
that.
at this. What color is your hypertext?
Well, that was my next question.
Oh, yeah.
Skipping down, as Dave would say.
Yeah.
In this case, skipping up. because
Dave
it goes up
Emery
to
is
top
one of the
page.
great anti-Bobs.
Yeah.
So Dave Emery, if we can tell you stories. See, Dave, did you know that Dave Emery stays here? Whenever he
Here?
comes out,
Yeah.
he stays here. This is where this
I
is
think
his
I
safe
have
house.
heard that now that you bring that to my attention.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that.
And you respect Dave, right? His research.
Listen, Dave interviewed a guy. Let's go off on a tangent
Yeah.
and bring us back to more controversial sort of details that don't matter, although it does. if
Yeah,
you're
more
involved in
controversial
it.
diseases,
Yeah,
fake diseases.
More conspiracies. And actually, this was a conspiracy. He interviewed a guy who just came out with a new book.
Mary Ferry and the monkey virus.
No, this guy apparently really does have a preferable take on the O.J. Simpson trial in the sense that
I heard that
apparently-
interview.
Did you?
Yeah,
This guy?
they played in New York, and
What's his name?
With the author of the book.
The author,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
I
did
don't
a
know, I
book.
forget the name of the book or the author, but
It
it
was-
was only this past week.
Okay.
And the
But
guy,
he did the interview a long time ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, yeah, it was a rebroadcast, but in any case, the bottom line was a conspiratorial thing where CIA, okay, or the DIA trained these Vietnam veteran special forces Green Beret type people who now know how to kill and murder and get away with it and don't have anything to do, and they're also racist. So they got a little group of them, half a dozen, had very good internal security and kept it small, and actually attempted to retrieve the same reason that the Manson people killed
Tate.
the Tate murders, performed the Tate murders. In other words, to in some way provoke and catalyze a race war.
Yeah.
These guys decided they would attempt to retrieve that again in the form of doing this whole surveillance scam on O.J. Simpson and Maria's wife and this other guy by accident, and get all the people worked up because they used the previous riot of the Rodney King experience as a paradigm within which they wanted to kind of extend. They figured they could do that again by involving the police and the racists in the police department and get this whole ball rolling, which they did, but in the end didn't work out because he got let off. Except now there's still possibility of more controversy because he's going to be sued in the civil court. But in any case, apparently the evidence is that that's actually who killed his wife. And it was so weird that you couldn't believe that this was actually. See, this is how this CIA run amok training, either in the context of the Middle East or here at home now, and as chaos and apocalypse ensues throughout these crazy people who are out of control, doing all this weird stuff, and pretty much getting away with it. I mean, I don't know that they'll ever try and track these people down because they've already gone through the trial, and why bother, right? But
Yeah.
it's an interesting story.
Well, now I realize that I'm talking about an Emory interview with a more straight journalist who had the same point that O.J. was innocent and set up, and had the neat fact that Mark Fuhrman, retired to the Aryan Nation headquarters in Idaho, I think, or Iowa, wherever those guys are, and he interviewed this guy, and this guy was a consultant to the O.J. defense team, and gave them their whole conspiracy idea that he was set up. I heard that months ago. This one I have not heard. That must be a new Emory thing.
Well, I guess that was a further confirmation of what was previously.
In the previous book, the first guy had a book. Now you're saying this guy has a book.
Yeah, actually, the source of look,
Yeah,
hovering
Oh, wow, Bob's hummingbird.
my buddy.
biology.
Yeah, that's the Ant-Man Bee Beefheart song. Ant-Man Bee. There's
Oh, really?
the distillation of the bee reality. Isn't that nice, Carol? We don't have them
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. Now I think I was going to say, were you going to say, if you finished? You brought up that because, Dave Emory. So Dave Emory,
because
you
Dave
respect
Emory,
Dave Emory.
Yeah, because that's how I respect Dave. Does dig up these people.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
really does show that people are running amok.
Right, and so Dave always stays here, and he's a member of Dobbstown, but he doesn't know it, and he fucking can't understand what the hell Dobbs is doing. He never understood me, and it's not. And Jerry can tell you great stories of how Dave fucking tries to figure out what the hell is going on here as a side issue, while he's so busy and harassed preparing for his shows. But that's the funny thing.
He doesn't realize he's a specialist in a time when specialists.
There are only two people. Here's why I say he doesn't realize he's a specialist.
He
Right.
doesn't realize that he is one in a time when a specialist.
He doesn't know he's a subgenius specialist. He's a good specialist. But the thing is that there are only two people that Dave Emory says he trusts in the world. You know who they are?
One is probably she remembers.
Yeah, okay, that's one. It's not the right answer, but I
Maybe.
know who you mean.
Maybe
Sue?
one.
What's her name, man? Sue?
Jeannie.
Jeannie. No, the only two people he trusts are me and Connie.
Oh, you and Connie?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he knows us as different names, and he uses those names, and he has told this to a few people, but he's always calling me.
He doesn't even trust Roy Tuckman?
No, the only two people that's at his personal level.
Oh.
The only people he knows that he can talk to, confide in, is me and Connie. And yet he doesn't understand us. Yet he knows he has to trust us.
Oh.
I mean, Dave is always leaving
Maybe
messages.
that's why.
Yeah. I have to help Dave out of his personal problems so often that it's...
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And Carol helps him a lot. It just goes on and on. But but we keep Dave alive, and he keeps going, so he's happy. So when push comes to shove, he has to come back to Dobbstown. But I wanted to say that that the virus is, we were saying to Scott, the virus is a thing in the interval between biology and technology.
Well, yeah, this book of these, I mean, this is the sordid details of a weird situation, but those people are like a core little group of viruses that are seeping in and doing all this havoc and killing people, and it's just out of control. But
they're halfway
at that
between
level.
homeopathic clicioprobes and anthropomorphic. A virus is halfway between animate and inanimate. Now this is a map. This is a map of the cancer virus, the AIDS virus. This is a fucking map of all the factors that go in to create disease today. And I mean, this is a very comprehensive, and the best doctor in the world, knows that this is the map that she has to use. I mean, these are nice viruses, and that's what's amazing. That's why Frank always had that viral paramecium metaphor in his musical stuff. We should, in the break, we have to go in and read out loud the description of Frank's, the central scrutinizer.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah, we got to do that, okay? Remember that, Scott. We're going to read that for the record before we, as well as look at the tape before we do whatever we're going to do on taping after that. Okay, so I just want to show you, this is a map. I mean, people pay $50,000 to go to college to study biology and become doctors, and it's going to take a long time for them to realize this is what they have to study. But when you're first naive and innocent, you can't make out this.
Well, they're
you
gonna
can't
have
go mystery school to get it out.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, they have to unlearn what they learned so they can get to the position of
To understand the map.
utilizing their basics.
Right.
To understand what they needed to learn in the first place.
They don't know that music is a disease. That's why in the elementals I got bass, guitar, tremor, organ, and vocals. You know what I mean? They're the elemental forces in the musical hologram, which Croker spells out as the the simulation of xenochrony or coherence. No, of synchrony. Music gives you, see, there's the thing. The Western world's stake is in xenochrony, or identity, since the Western world is more identity than the emerging Buddhists. The Catholics are I, or ego, and the Buddhists are womb, blob, merge. The East and West, Lemurian and Atlantis. Music, in the battle between the eye and the ear, we're run by unity, which is music, and that synchronizes the world. But the I, identity, has to rely on the ego, the identity has to rely on the I, which creates xenochrony, which is Rai, which is separateness. The I is the separating medium. So Rai evokes, the retrieval of Rai evokes xenochrony, which is the eyes demand their fucking turn. Television kills telephoning brothers broil. Let the eyes demand their turn, let them be seen, and Joyce revitalized obsolete visual space by choosing the medium of choice, the book, to retrieve xenochrony.
Implied in xenochrony is unity, because it implies the interconnection of all things.
That's right, and that's connectedness, and the visual space is connected, and there are no connections in acoustic space. But in different situations, they create reverse purposes, and that's why Bob wears glasses, to emphasize the eye, even though I don't need them. And then you show up as a person made of, see, I creates isolation, makes you alone, takes you out of the womb of tribal consensus, and you show up with Bob's same glasses, you know.
However, mine are sort of necessary.
Oh, color is your hypertext? Since this,
I was about to
were you going to ask something?
Well, we were going to determine what
look.
your hypertext is.
Yeah. This is the map to the hypertext of CD-ROM. Look at this, Carol. You got to get this point. I have the elemental forces right below talking, but the first thing of all this is colors.
Well,
Orange, red, blue, yellow, green, and what color is your hypertext? Each one of these can be a hypertext. So which one are you?
The chromatic particulars.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
components.
You got down here do, re, mi, fa, sol, you know, the acoustic. So it begins with the eye because it's anachrony, and the ear is subservient. Ear must be destroyed. The chart of how we destroy the fucking ear. This is great. We're making new discoveries of what I meant. Okay, you can go now, Connie.
This is the eureka experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Of scientific revelation.
Now that's now here's this is anachrony. The only person who I have discussed the eureka experience using that word is Walter Bower. And we, in 1982, went to Seattle to look up the Cosmic Awareness Channel. I wanted to introduce the Cosmic Awareness people to Walter Bower. And it was the first week in April when the Falklands War started. And in the course of our talking with Paul Shockley, Walter always has his favorite story about the scientific experience that showed that the eureka experience, if you trigger the eureka part of the brain, it's more pleasurable than sexual orgasm. And in their dialogue with the Cosmic Awareness gang, Walter got a great inspiration where he wanted to do a book with me on the eureka experience. Now there's the fucking hidden geometry. You show up, that was September '94. You show up 12 years later, and fucking Khalil had the number 12 on his t-shirt today, so we're seeing the meaning of 12 today. Show up 12 years later on the radio show and go back to the beginning. Bob offers Slack eureka experiences, and you evoke Board in the thing, but then we find out 2 years later, almost to the month, find out 2 years later, 22 months later, this is August, July versus September, so it's not quite 24. So it's 22 months later you show up, and you're the first person to bring up the eureka experience, but it involves Walter, who you triggered by your question. Now, isn't that's cynic, that's synchron, that's unity. You know what I mean?
That's unitary geometry.
Yeah, that's God. Or God does not roll dice, play dice. He's got a well-organized universe. Every daily activity is fucking resonating with the unity.
Did Einstein say that? God
Yeah.
does not play dice with the
Yeah.
Yeah, but he never really understood. I don't think he.
Einstein?
Did he understand?
No.
He just intuitively refused to give up the intuition that God doesn't play dice with the universe in the face of quantum physics, which was
in the face of
indicating otherwise.
I have talked to Einstein through the medium that I interviewed, or through Bob Marshall. I set up the interview with Bob Marshall with Zappa. Have you read that, the Dead Zappa interview on Flipside? He's not aware of that part of our work?
No, but I did read the channeling of Marshall McLuhan in Wired. I didn't read all that.
Yeah, which was written by me, but that was a fake channeling. That wasn't. I actually talked to Marshall through my source, through my medium.
But that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was okay, but it was done by me. And if I was on TV, I'm not going to do it here, but if I was on Patrick's show, I was gonna put out a mind blower statement about that channel thing that would have freaked out the Wired boys. But I'm not going to do it. This is too private. I'll save that for public stuff, and get it out there in a bigger or an more obsolete scale, because if it's obsolete, it'll work.
You have a greater impact. Okay,
Yeah.
but returning to Einstein.
Yeah.
Channeling Einstein.
I did a panel with Kepler, Einstein, Ezra Pound. McLuhan's always there. He dropped in. Jesus, Nelson Rockefeller, and Edison came in unannounced, and then that evoked Tesla. So I think there were 8 people that just run through that. Kepler, Einstein, Pound,
Edison.
McLuhan, Edison and Tesla, Nelson Rockefeller, and who was the others?
Gandhi or somebody like that.
Shit, it's always the
Gandhi.
No. It's Einstein. Oh, Edison. Edison's the 8th guy, who I didn't evoke, but he joined in. And we discussed Einstein in this very point. Einstein, it's an hour-long symposium. We have Einstein talk about Kepler, then we have Jesus talk about Einstein, then we have Einstein talking about Joyce and Finnegan's Wake, and I get him to admit that, I didn't force him, but the unfoldment was he admitted that his science is dated compared to the prophetic science that Joyce made in Finnegan's Wake. He said that Finnegan's Wake is more of the science of the future. So,
but that's consistent with the time period wherein Joyce developed, I guess, the basics which led to what he wrote, and that time period was literally coincident.
With Einstein. No, he was arguing with Einstein and Ulysses.
Yeah. Well, but the point I wanted to make was that the coincident time of his, it was his basic development of skills was the same period that
Of Einstein. 1900, well, that's what we have now. You're evoking again the chart,
Yes,
the meaning of my chart.
Yes, but.
Okay.
But let me be more particular.
1900 to 1918.
Einstein was a contemporary of a number of people, and the truth is that the technology and the science of the future was not Einstein, it was Tesla.
Right.
Tesla was of the future. And a very interesting coincidence, I want to bring this out because this is interesting, that as well as James Joyce in the literary sense, fashion, or literary science, or the science of...
No, technological science.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll get
Well,
to
yeah,
that.
language,
You say your
language
bit.
as a technology.
Yeah.
As Bergson said, language
technology.
was a technology of humanity. But in any case, an interesting historical fact should be included in formal education, which is that technologically, we reached a fork in the technological road at the same time when all these people were contemporaries. Einstein,
Edison,
Proteus, Steinmetz, Joyce, and Tesla, and Edison.
Yeah.
And arbitrarily, it was chosen that instead of taking the hyperdimensional physics of Tesla and go in through free energy and all that stuff, which he tried to realize but was cut short by J.P. Morgan, we chose the petrochemical fashion. And actually, anomalous as it may be, Tesla was developing this in a literal sense at the same time that they had this other antithetical exothermic technology of internal combustion engines and petrochemical, which hadn't been begun either, and it was actually literally a fork in the road. He could have given everybody everything that they wanted without, technology that would have never materialized to formally disappear in the first place.
He was anticipating fusion.
Yes, but he was anticipating all this stuff,
Yeah.
and I guess in a literary sense, in his way, Joyce was able to realize that.
He was on Tesla's side.
Yeah, and then Tesla was actually murdered in the end.
Right.
But I think you can see this quandary in your reference to in Einstein's the facing of quantum mechanics. Just look at Einstein's face. The quandary is read in his face.
Yeah, he's like an old child. He has a great ancient quandary and a youthful quandary in his face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these guys would have been enemies if they were in incarnation. So
They were,
well, they would have been if they lived at the same time.
They
Well,
did.
Edison and Tesla
They
were
did.
enemies.
But that's what I'm saying. There's a
Yeah.
photograph.
They
There's
were.
No, how were they? But in the wherever they are now, they're what club?
yeah, you're unified in spirit. You know, they're friends. Now let me say this part. It's very important that you brought up Tesla because we did Einstein, Kepler, blah blah blah. Then we brought in Edison. Then I brought in Tesla. And after Tesla said his piece, and then Jesus said his piece,
okay.
that led. In other words, you heard from Tesla versus Einstein and Edison, and then that led to me bringing in Joyce. Which is like, thanks to Tesla, I brought in Joyce Finneg's Wake, and due to Tesla having his piece, Einstein had to admit. If we had not brought Tesla in, Einstein may not have agreed in this symposium of that now, with the statement I was leading to with Finneg's Wake.
Well,
so it's important you bring up Tesla.
Well, there's a resonant photograph of this, and it's probably, technologically and scientifically, it's probably the most important photograph of the entire 20th century. It's a photograph taken, I think, on the day of the inauguration, I think in 1919, of one of the Marconi wireless sites, which is located somewhere in New Jersey, located geo-positioning in terms of the ley lines and all that, because they knew that they had to position those things in certain places for certain reasons.
Right.
And Marconi appropriated Tesla's patent to be able to do this. And on the day that they inaugurated this, they took a photograph. In the photograph was Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and Charles Proteus Steinmetz. They're all in the same photograph. And when you look at that photograph, you go, that's talking heavy-duty people right there.
Yeah.
And Einstein has this look on his face like, you know, this was some argument, right? You know.
So he looks
And yet they
he
never
looks what, hurt
acknowledge
or
well,
angry?
he just kind of like, it's kind of like a subtle chagrin of, you know, like who's got the upper hand here. Well, the
Yeah, and
person-
he wasn't sure at that point.
Yeah.
He was worried about his role. He heard about Mir and he was going to lose his job.
Oh,
so
yeah.
yeah.
Jesus, are you
And the
kidding?
interesting part in there is that my grandfather invented one of the first wireless radios. Never mind, Jerry.
Oh, really?
That he made in Boston that was wireless, picked up in South America, and Marconi stole his patent.
Really? Yeah, Marconi was known for appropriating things and then reconfiguring it and then getting away with what. But in the end, he got his comeuppance because he built five sites, and then when he did, the government created General Electric and took them all away from him and kicked them out.
Who's he kicked who?
No,
out?
Westinghouse. They
Yeah.
created no. What's
Westinghouse funded Tesla.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Westinghouse. It was General Electric. Yeah, General Electric, because General Sarnoff was the head of it. And then they took all of the sites away.
Of who? Which scientist?
Marconi's 5 sites.
Yeah.
He actually did build them. But then they realized technologically what this new ground of being was going to be by virtue of these sites.
Yeah.
And then they took them away from them and created General Electric. I believe it was General Electric. And then called them this new entity and appropriated them away from Marconi, and then he couldn't run them anymore, and then they ran them instead.
Yeah, I think Sarnoff was RCA.
That's what it was, RCA.
Yeah,
Take that back. It was RCA.
Right.
Right.
You get it, all right.
It was RCA. Stand corrected.
Now
That's
here's
what it was.
and here's the.
I wanted to make a point, which is that LaRouche traces
I was
the
just
fork
going-
in the road back to
You Jerry, you've got to give Randy a Xerox of that article, the heirs. You're talking about the heirs to Leibniz.
yeah.
That great article. It goes back to Ben Franklin, who created the Industrial Revolution. Then it goes into the Electric Revolution, and it shows the battle between Tesla and Edison and J.P. Morgan. You got to read that. It's the history of America in 4 pages. Just beautiful, right, Jerry? So you give him a copy of that.
Actually, I was going to refer to that he
From LaRouche, who people are biased against. He's laying the groundwork of what he just said.
yeah.
What you just
LaRouche traces the fork in the road
Yeah.
back to the competing mathematical systems, which give the results of negentropic or entropic.
Yeah.
results,
Hobbes and Leibniz.
Which
Newton
and-
versus Leibniz.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And the
And in the 19th century, it was
the reason why-
Edison versus Tesla.
the
Yeah.
prevailing mathematics were selected by the powers that be that were because they gave the accounting results or the monetary results, which gave
Accumulation
accumulation of money
Centralization.
to the elitists
for visual space.
for visual space
Yeah.
and kept everyone else stupid at the fact that they
Yeah.
we live in a would you say we live in a negentropic cosmos?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
point.
we live in a negentropic negentropic universe,
and these
How
guys
we hear about
brainwashed humanity into believing
the
that
second law of
it would
thermodynamics is
reverse
winding down.
through using
well,
a form of
Well,
mathematics.
yeah, they had a unified field. You know, all these people are giving Einstein credit for breaking his back year after year after year at the advanced studies
In Princeton.
For coming up with a unified field. But a guy named what's the guy's name? Can't think of it now. But he wrote two classic papers were written in 1903. The Whittaker, that's it. He was a British mathematician, and he actually came up with a
Unified field theory.
Yes, but I mean a technologically realizable unified field in 1903. His name was Whittaker, and these two papers, this guy named Tom Bearden, who's the current expert theoretician on how Tesla's technology works, he told me the story personally, how he was doing technology research for the Army, and one day he got this hair up his ass to go into the archives on the stacks where they had all their library. One day he was thinking about all this, and he walked right in there, and he said, he told me this, he had this feeling to go in, and he came to a place where they had these books, and he opened up this compendium of mathematical, it's just a mathematical, it's like a monograph, and he opened it up, he said he opened it up to the page where Whittaker's two papers were, and that's where he found it. And now he's been publicizing the fact that they had a unified theory in 1903, and they didn't need all the stuff that all these other people, Feynman and Einstein and all these people who think they're
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, these are holy patty cliche probes.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
They're cliche, all
They
right.
keep the business going because
They keep
that's xenochrony.
Oh yeah, and the reason why they had the photograph of Einstein and Tesla and Steinmetz was because Steinmetz was the greatest of all algebraic mathematicians who translated what Tesla did into engineerable algebra. That's what he did. Somebody had to figure that out to actually use the stuff that...
Somebody's going to have to do that with Franz Fleischmann.
Yeah.
And with me.
Tesla just worked experimentally. He didn't do any theorizing.
That's this. This is a mathematical. Remember, it's a fucking formula. Bob Dobbs.
He understood exactly. He knew that the speed of light was no limitation on anything. Einstein, he was exactly what the book says, prodigal genius.
But he just
What
sort
does
of
that
did
say?
his
Who was?
Tesla.
Oh yeah,
Tesla was a
Would
prodigal
you say the
genius.
speed of light's no limitation to what?
The speed of light.
Is what?
The speed of light is not a constant.
It's not the gold standard we should be using, and that is what we discussed with Einstein.
It's not a constant?
No,
No.
that's the
Einstein-
oligarch's
Einstein
version.
It's basically...
It's visual space. The eye is faster than sound. It's a fucking eye. It's a celebration of the eye.
Yeah,
That light is faster than sound. There's a visual bias right in there.
It's the,
So you're saying it's not a constant, or it's not the constant we should use?
No, it's
There's
not a
no-
constant we should use.
Yeah.
It's not a limitation.
No, it's not a limitation. It depends on how you do what you want to do. Or the mere fact that you can remote viewing or whatever, going from here
But
to
that's
there.
what the symposium was. That was the panel
Well,
about.
that's scalar way. Yeah.
But that's what the panel was about. We went the meeting. We went through the limitations of the E equals MC squared, and they explained what wasn't true, and everybody got involved. And Einstein did too. And that's why, as Marshall said in the 50s, that what was shocking to Einstein was obvious to Joyce, and Joyce went further than Einstein. And that's why I wanted to get that Joyce worked beyond E equals MC squared, and Einstein admitted it. He says, yes, he calls it the future.
You couldn't produce anything that you could mass market and make a lot of money with Joyce.
That's right.
I mean, you could turn...
Einstein's great thing is he brought history to an exclamation point. He at least created the energy that created the
How does
atomic
he
bomb.
feel about that?
Well,
Because he was sorrowful that...
Well, we didn't go into his emotional state, but I got some great. He was really avant-garde privately. He had some great ideas that I started bringing up some strange Tesla stuff, and he said, yeah, he was working on some of that stuff himself just before he died. I can't remember it right now. I mean, I wouldn't want to go into it. It's too digressive, but we got some of Einstein's last. He was still working. He may have been sad. Yeah, he was depressed, but he still was making breakthroughs as much as he could. Even though Tesla had been dead 12 years. Tesla died in 43, I think, and Einstein died in 55.
Oh, was it? Those 12? Okay, let's...
There's your 12.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to return to it.
Yeah.
The number 12, because you said you had a couple of instances of realization regarding the number 12 recently.
Yeah, we were with a guy, I just met Khalil, who's number 12 in his t-shirt, and I was explaining, why don't I have 12 in here? Now, 12 is under the dodecahedron, and dodecahedron is 12. 12 and 23 are part of the old system. You don't have 23 on here because that's the old system. That's Christ. That's the 12. That's the magic of 12. 14 is better than 12, even though 14 is now obsolete. But I said to Khalil, you represent the hologramic retrieval of the American dream. You're a guy from Lebanon who comes over and is living out this thing, and there's really no ground for you. And you're the immigrants. The immigrants, the non-Americans, are propping up America, the archetype hologram of America.
Mm-hmm.
And so you represent, he had 12, so you represent that old dream, the 23 dream, the Robert Anton Wilson pre-22, pre-World War II, of 12 and 23, and you're wearing it in your t-shirt, and you represent the immigrants coming in and reliving say 1900 to 1945. And so 12 came up, and that's why it came up, and that's an old thing, and he's doing it. Now you want to say something about 12.
Yeah, I do. We're having another revelation by 12.
Okay.
And I thought that I would be able to integrate this into creative evolution but before I show you.
Which we are continuously talking about, the two words creative evolution. We have not left the topic.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
because
on record.
you see, technology and biology is changing and also creatively evolving. And there is a DNA factor in the biological genre,
Yeah.
or matter, biological. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you this is because in the exegesis that Jerry sent me, the 10-page or the 9-page one, the
Solar Theater.
Solar
Yeah,
Theater.
part 2, which is this chart.
Towards the end, you referred to a significance regarding the DNA,
Right.
or the double helix.
D cell is DNA squared.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, also analogically, I think the more specific understanding of the chakras is that there's 7 main ones that people talk about, but actually there's 12.
Well, that's the Melchizedek's, Trimbalo's knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, then you also talk about in near the same passage where you're referring to DNA squared.
Yeah.
You're also talking about the value of looking into the manifestation, the artistic art forms of the crop circles in England.
Right. And how
Okay.
in mind, you got something
Okay,
good?
well, you check this out.
Oh, I love this.
Because this is
I've already seen it. It's great.
This is, have you seen this one?
Well, I know I have, but I haven't. You know,
Formed on the 17th of June.
this year.
Yep, the double helix art.
And what do I say in the essay? I says, we will in retrospect see that the crop circles mirror the 1960-1990 step-by-step life of Bob and Connie. And he's really up to date. I always have, I don't have time to keep up on it.
Beautiful.
This is it. This is my fucking thing, isn't it?
This is heavy duty.
Yeah. This is the.
I
This
don't know
is
who's
June
doing this.
17th.
June 17th.
You don't know who's doing this.
This, well, yeah.
We had
well,
two farmers with a couple of rakes.
Yeah, the little rocks coming out of the bar. This spectacular formation arrived 17th June.
Kyle's doing it.
Alton Barnes.
This year or last year?
This year.
How do you get these so fast? What network are you on? Is this on the internet?
Yeah. of
Good.
course. 600.
Adam's grave. No, we're
Adam's
talking
grave, the Adamic race. Yeah, on Adam's
7/7/14.
grave. The resurrection.
Look at the thought bubbles of 14. The thought bubbles are on burnt Winnie sandwich. This is the punchline. But we're gonna take a break after this fucking thing.
648 feet long,
That's 18.
consisting of 89 circles.
17. 89, 17. June 17.
Yeah, thought bubbles, for God's sake. Everyone who sees it agrees that the design represents DNA.
Yeah, but it's this. It's fucking this. You see, it's not just DNA, because it's still talking technology. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Now this is the mathematical formula. This chart. This is the thing that explains and frustrates Tesla. This doesn't explain Tesla, but it is better than Tesla, and it includes Tesla. But since it's anachronous, it frustrates Tesla. Okay. Now.
Well, he deserves to be frustrated too.
Right.
Let's superimpose
How does it?
this briefly for the sake.
This is beautiful.
You can see that. You should be able to see it to some degree. You can see the illustration anyway.
But remember, show them the image of the tetrad, Jerry. See, the tetrad is 2 DNA things. It's 2 Mobius strips. See, that's a Mobius strip.
Yeah.
Laid out, and now how many fucking dots? I hope that's 1, 2. Is it 12? This
Yeah,
here?
12. Well, in 89 total.
This is the old DNA. They're showing why Bob. They're
Yeah,
showing.
they're hinting at
they're hinting at the old stuff. They're just slow edge. This is undergraduate.
Oh, yeah.
They're tuning them into DNA of the 12 on the way to 2214 and beyond. So this is the old stuff. Now what? On the cover of UFO magazine, one of those UFO magazines, they had a year ago a beautiful. Did I draw? They have a circle. The point is they had 14.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, and if you've seen it, was on the, you know, UFO magazine.
Yeah.
It's just UFO, I think, and it said they showed the circle and then another little inner circle, and they had a spindle going off, and it, oh yeah, it was a tail like a snake's tail, and it had 14 circles. They had 14. So this is reverting back during the American election year of dole and ridiculousness. They're going back to, unfortunately it's a bad year, 96. We've got to go back and clean up the old dole gang who was born in 1923. And so they're showing this one, whereas last year was a good year, 95, adds up to 14. They showed the 14 thing. So that's just the political thing here. Sorry to see.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
the
yeah.
tetra. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't seen that. The cover, no.
Yeah, the
Well, I'm
DNA
familiar.
spiral is sort of like a Mobius strip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
But this is 2 Mobius strips, so it's a tetrad, it's 2 and 2. So they're only showing the half of the story, so that's why it's 12. It's 12. You get to 14 via 22, which is the tetrad. But look at the other numbers. In June 17th, the day after Bloomsday, is you got the 77. There's but really it's 2 S's, 2 Kundalinis. I mean, you got. Now, I was just before I came here, I was looking at my files, and I was just thinking I should re-listen to the my sources on the sine, the relationship between the sine wave, the circle, and the spiral, and this is that.
Okay, well, get ready for this one. We don't know exactly when the next one. I have another image here that will say this is remarkable. Also, as an aside, I want to say that when this was first brought to my attention at one of my UFO meetings 2 months ago, the guy only had this illustration. They hadn't been disseminating the photograph yet. But he was a long-time crop circle researcher from England. His name was Ed Sherwood. And he said that this is an interesting contrast to previous years, because in the previous years of all this phenomena, as it's been building in the last few years, it seemed to be that the pattern of sophistication and complexity was that each season it would begin kind of simple, and then throughout the year it'd get greater complexity of the patterns. And this year, this is
the beginning.
This was the beginning.
Yeah, it's going to get so complex by September.
And check this one out.
Oh, we got some complexities? Woo!
This was actually reported on 7/7. They don't know exactly when it was done, but check this out. This is the road.
That's a variation of the image I was telling you from last year.
So
we've come to it.
Yeah, this is the road. This is Stonehenge, and there it is.
Isn't that beautiful?
So check that out.
Yeah, what the image in UFO was this big one and 2 little ones, and it curved like this, but these aren't curved, but it was curved like that. So this is like, isn't that amazing? Like I bring up this image, and it's the one you're going to have on the other side.
Yeah, right across the street from Stonehenge.
That's amazing.
And that's the same shape that that mathematical curve that what's his name always talks
LaRouche.
about.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
universal.
really?
Oh yeah,
Golden
LaRouche
mean.
is that's the golden section, the spinal isometric theorem, but it's the whole fucking thing. You got to look at some LaRouche just to show how he's on the right track.
Hold it up.
That one must have taken 3 farmers.
Yeah.
3 farmers.
I'm the only one who knows how they're made and who makes them in the world.
Well, you know who makes them. You
What?
know how they're made.
Yeah, you guys, Dobbstown members know it's the Bootians, but I know how they're made.
How are they made?
That's
It's
a
very
trade
simple.
secret.
No,
Well-
I've said it. I've said it on the.
Oh, yeah?
I did you know what, Jerry? I did a great talk show on December 6th, 1995, across Canada's biggest station. And I laid so much stuff out on that one, and then the next one.
We got both of those.
You said those? Have you heard those?
Yep, he's got them both.
They're I lay out the genetic engineering. I lay out the crop circles. I don't say how they're done, but I have said them on shows. I have said them once here and there how it is. But see, there's a reason. Not that there's an Illuminati, but there has to be a bit of silence about what the fucking Bootians are going to do, because it's so fucking amazing. They pretend even not to tell me what they're going to do, you know, because it's so important that we want to have a final surprise, so to speak. So, you know, you want to have a bit of innocence retrieved. But they're very simple. Here's the simple explanation how to do the crop circles. They're machines, whatever they are, you know, what you want to call them. they can alter gravity. So all they do is they fucking go, they just alter the gravity and the plants fall, the leaves, the stems fall down.
Oh.
That's all they do. They're sitting erect under the tension of gravity. You release gravity, they lay all real nice and comfortable, and they can alter the way they lay.
Oh, it's sort of like a noodle. I mean, the way noodles kind of like just fall over.
If you let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can control the way they go. I mean, they've got it refined, the way they can alter the vortex of gravity.
So
But that's why they don't break.
Yeah, the researchers always say when you use a stick or something, they're broken.
Right. They do. All they do, they're fucking little sprouts.
Right.
Oh, and all of a sudden you zap their ground, their vortex, and they just they just fall over real nicely.
Yeah,
And then if they get real good, and they just make them fall the way they want to fall.
amazing.
And that's a very simple explanation, logical, and yet I've heard Walter Bower's always telling me these fucking theories that are coming up with at these conferences, and I keep telling him, look, this is the theory, but he won't fucking hear it. But I'm glad you see the simplicity, and it is not mentioned, is it? They do variations of it.
No one has proposed
But
that theory.
So I did have you've never heard it before, right?
Right.
Yeah, and
Does that
that's it. Oh, you do it twice.
Does that make a sound though? Because I saw this other guy, this guy who researches those.
They
He
got
said there's
tapes.
a
Yeah.
buzzing noise or something.
I'm not sure. I imagine that their instruments can do that, and if they want to, they can use sound. Maybe that's how they alter gravity, which is sort of a visual medium. They
Oh.
might alter it through sonics.
Yeah, you can alter gravity through sound.
Yeah. So
Uh,
probably there is a sound element.
I have a video that they actually attempt to illustrate the possibilities thereof, and the analogy that they give is some very highly adept Tibetan monks who they think used sonic levitation to actually construct these weird precarious temples they have on the side of these weird cliffs and all this stuff that they built God knows where, and they could never, get any pack mules to drag
Yeah.
everything up, so they think that they actually did this weird, and who knows.
Well, that's how the Atlanteans built the pyramids. And, I mean, they helped the Egyptians after Atlantis blew up. But yeah, definitely those ancient cultures, 600, 6,000, 8,000 BC, were using levitating devices.
I think of sound as being,
What?
I think of sound as being a gross phenomenon compared to light or magnetics or gravity.
No, you have to say it again. We didn't hear you.
I think of sound as being a fairly gross, a very gross, mechanical phenomenon compared to light or magnetic resonance or gravity, right?
Well,
Because
particular vibration.
sound is the compression
is-
and refraction of air waves. Now,
The
how
sound
can you,
waves,
how can you
they're-
levitate something with
No,
that?
electromagnetism is the vortex for all the senses, okay? So they're working not with sound, they're working with the tactile membrane, which is the platform to modulate the senses of this dimension. If they're working with the tactile platform, or electromagnetism vortex, which is what I have under a RIE, then a spin-off effect would be sound. But it's not working just with sound. You're right that it's growth. It's only a figure effect that our senses pick up while they're working with something beneath sound, which is tactility or electromagnetism. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why but I was just thinking that since you're in touch with these people who run around with their theories, you should start probing with what you heard from Bob Dobbs. Because it's about time that Bob Dobbs' theory got out there among those guys. I've said it to the populace, but they don't know what it is. But those who believe the crop circles are trying to figure it out. Just tell them. I talked to George. Who's the famous guy who runs?
George Wingfield?
Yeah, I talked to George in 1990, say, and I told him, I basically told him, without giving too much away, what was going on, and he found it interesting, but he never did anything with it, or I haven't seen him use it or talk about it.
Yeah, well, the scientific community are so,
Well, they're-
specialized. They're still trying to argue. Some of them are still trying. I still hear this, that they say, they get on these meteorologists and say, well, there's wind vortexes, and they do all this stuff,
Yeah.
except there's right angles and all kinds of other weird things. I mean, it's so. Anybody who has any common sense in them would
Yeah.
actually throw that out 5 years ago. But some people are still propounding. It's absolutely, it's
It's
absurd, truly absurd. But they don't want to go so far as to meet the possibility that there is a unified field of understanding of possibilities that's being demonstrated here. There has to be, because they have some biologists who actually look at the nature of these plants afterwards and they go, something is actually affecting him. This is not the product of just bending
Right.
him over with big flat pieces of wood.
Oh, there's so much evidence, at least for 4 years now, that it's extraterrestrial or something going on, and it's just amazing. You bring it up with people and say, "Oh, they disproved that," or "Oh, that's not even talked about anymore," and they're not even aware of these things. These things are continuing on. The
Well,
media.
ever since they had those two old men who supposedly done it,
Right.
then there's no more coverage.
Right, I know,
have
which
a
was
tape-
totally ridiculous.
I have a tape recording of a guy who was ex-intelligence, and he got interested in the phenomena through someone who's been studying it for quite a few years now, and he got what he did was he wanted to infiltrate the camp that's putting out the disinformation. So he posed as a journalist, and he started to make some connections. He makes it, and the telephone conversations were recorded. He makes the first connection, and he talks to somebody who's feeling him out. And he feels him out a little bit. He passes the test, and he passes him on to the next guy.
Yeah.
A little bit deeper in.
Yeah.
In the network, and
In the maze.
yeah, and the story he gets, as he gets in a little more, is that that these guys that there's a very highly paid network of people who are employed full time, and if he wants to get in on this network, what's being presented to him is he can earn enough money in 2 years to basically retire for the rest of his life. And as a journalist, they thought that he posed as a journalist out of Australia. They thought that they could use him to put more disinformation in the mainstream. And this was being funded by the Vatican. And
Oh, that's interesting.
the idea was that the crop circles are satanic.
Yeah.
Satan's
The
making his
Antichrist.
move.
Which is in the drive time.
Yeah.
That idea is in drive time.
That's the cover story, because
sorry.
because the people who are, I guess, the core group of the Vatican probably know that that's just, you know, all the satanic conspiratorial things that they think are perpetrated and to some way realize the vision of the Antichrist and all that. That's just
PR
this-
bullshit.
yeah,
Let me tell you.
They had the
The Vatican-
philosophy that they communicated to him. What the idea was is that we have to keep it out of the media, because if too many people recognize that it's true, it'll make the reality of Satan more real in the world. So the only way to keep him from becoming real is to keep him from becoming recognized.
Right. Let me tell you this: the guys who are spreading the disinformation know exactly what's going on and believe they know it's extraterrestrial. They know, they probably might even know by now. I mean, I've known this gravity thing since 1990, 89, when they started servers. I found it pretty quickly. So I would say it's filtered down, and maybe somebody has figured it out. I say the people who are going on with these crazy wind vortex theories know exactly what it is, and it's anachrony. They're putting out disinformation, and the reason is they want to keep. Everybody is sitting in their backyard saying, "I hope the fucking vehicles land in my backyard, because then it'll be locked down, Charlie rule." You know what I mean, or whatever. The point is that these networks are doing a last gasp Illuminati chance of. It's just like an Independence Day. They were fucking working with the vehicle. They knew they existed, but the line was for the American population that wasn't. The thing is, they know everything up to a point. Here's the
to maintain
up to
the
a
threat of control and influence
Right.
dynamics in their direction.
They want to keep. It's like we have a conversation here, and somebody comes in. We don't want them to be part of the circle. So they say, "What are you guys talking about?" "Oh, we're talking about a great party that's going on over the 2 streets over." So they go over. We were at the party. It was a great fucking party. Go over there. So we get rid of them because we want to hear it and want to be here when the Bootians show up. So we're playing a waiting game and keeping the disinformation going, not because we believe the disinformation put out. We just want to distract them so that we can have access to central headquarters, or central scrutinizer. Now, the missing point is that they don't know. They don't have the karma to fucking make the connection. Bob and Connie had the karma, made the connection, in the 80s.
They think they have the status.
Yeah, they think that they've actually believed they have the karma to deserve it. They don't deserve it. The only 2 people who deserve it are the only 2 people left, Bob and Connie, and we're the only ones who know what's going on. And they can run around and make all their games, and they won't be able to stop mere infusion. So that's the big secret. That's why I don't go to these conferences, because they're working for me, in the sense that they're running around keeping you people away. But I'm not trying to hide myself from you. But that's why I don't have one of these things. But it always points out Bob in the end. So I just get I don't need to find any information because the only information is what I'm doing. So everybody keeps giving me information. Then in the end, if you get initiated enough, you see that it always keeps pointing to Bob. So
anyway, through synchronicity, it all comes to you anyway.
yeah, and I just proved to you, someone who's well versed in this field, you've never heard
yeah.
what I just explained. I just
No,
gave him a fucking breakthrough and it's on tape.
That is a breakthrough.
Yeah,
On
and so
tape.
I'm saying you go around and tell those fuckers now because it's obsolete. Even that's obsolete now. You know what I mean? Especially with these fucking images they're coming up with.
Well, consistent with what he said, this was told me literally by the person who this happened to, who was probably the most prominent crop circle researcher. His name is Colin Andrews.
Yeah.
He's an Englishman, but now he lives in this country. He actually told me this, and I confirmed this, I think, at least one other time, where, off the record, although in public he has referred to this generally, and that's why I went up to him after the fact and said, no, tell me this story again. What did you say? And he said, actually, early in his research, when he was getting on to the possibility that there is UFO sighting correlations to the creation of these things, the real crop circle patterns.
Say that sentence again. The question, I didn't hear your words. I missed the word. You went up to him and he had said what?
He had said that in the process of him doing his earlier research into who is the correlation between UFO sightings and who is really creating the legitimate crop circle patterns. You know, there are a certain number of hoaxes every year, and then there are the other ones that I think are the quote-unquote real ones, right? So he was attempting to correlate that there are UFO sightings in the creation of these more impressive crop patterns. So a CIA person came up to him when he was still living in England and actually tried to recruit him to go on the BBC to debunk the significance of what he felt were the legitimate crop circles.
Proving my point.
Proving his point.
Yeah.
That there are people out there in the intelligence community
Who know?
who know that they're trying to recruit these crop circle researchers to try and debunk the whole thing for some reason that they obviously they wouldn't tell you the
So they can be the elite. So they can make the contact
you
with
have to read that between the lines, but
Yeah.
but then he told me that when he came over here to this country, ONI approached him
Yeah.
to do the antithesis, to actually recruit him to
Promote the UFO
to
idea?
give them information that they could use to